host, NicoB, back with the last of the games I played over at Gamescom with Capcom. And we saved the most prestigious one for last. That is, of course, Resident Evil 9, i.e. Resident Evil Requiem. And to be honest, I think one of the reasons why I'm saving this one for last is not because I'm not excited about it, but because I feel that there's not exactly a ton that I can really get from just this little bit of gameplay that we've gotten. It basically starts like what we saw in the trailers, with Grace getting captured and hung upside down and using her ingenuity to break out of the thing that she's in. And then she proceeds to make her way around this little area in the usual Resident Evil style, grabbing keys, unlocking doors, finding fuses, you know, the classic shit. But what's interesting is at the start of this, you're actually given the option to switch between first and third person. And it's something you can change on the fly, though the game does recommend you play first person for this part, which makes sense because it's definitely a much scarier kind of aesthetic that I think works better for first person. Though I did try third person just a little bit just to see what it looked like. And it's cool. It's pretty much like what they ended up patching into Resident Evil 8, where that game was originally just first person and then they allowed you to actually switch to third person in a later patch and can actually control Ethan, albeit he'd always conveniently cover his face up a little bit. And I think this is interesting. I think this might be indicative of not just repeating what they did in RE8, but potentially something else, but I'll get into that later. For the most part, I stuck basically to first person for this demo because it does feel just better. And I will say this demo is definitely fucking dark. Holy shit, dude. When you're in the dark, you're like really in the dark. Like there's moments where you're just like, I literally can't move forward. I can't see anything. Like literally until you turn a light on, you can't see shit. And I'm also pretty sure that you can't interact with things too when it's like completely pitch black. So there's like no reason to try to like force it. It's not like you can just like speed run through some shit in the darkness. But you do eventually get a lighter, which lets you then actually like be able to like interact with things even when the lights aren't on, which is handy. And I will say, also lights up a surprising amount of the area for being such a tiny little flame. I also gotta say, I did kind of laugh my ass off at this one part where Grace comes across a very obviously dead body and she just like puts her hand to his neck and is like, he's dead. Yeah, no shit, Grace. But of course, it's not long before bad things start happening. And a big old woman with some big old teeth just comes out, just fucking decides, you're gonna be the next meal. And goddamn, man, is this a freaky looking monster. She is huge. And if she catches you, it is rough. I did actually die to her at one point. And I will say, man, holy shit. I can't show you guys the death. That's one of the things we are not allowed to show, but I will say, you definitely do not want to get caught. It's pretty fucked up. But this chick will just hunch your ass down. And the funny thing is, there is definitely some AI shenanigans to how this chick functions, because I played through this twice, and the second time, which is what you're seeing here, she was much more aggressive. I feel like way less lucky. For example, so at one point, she makes her way into the room I'm in. So I wait for her to walk by, I get past her, go out the other side, down the hallway, and then she breaks through a barricaded door that I couldn't go through before and basically cuts me off the pass. So then I loop all the way back around again, go through the other door, try to go down the hallway, and then fucking hell, at the very end, suddenly she just crawls out of the ceiling. Dude, what the? I swear to God, you were just right behind me. What the fuck? How'd you get over here? And yeah, and just with the insanely intense lighting and dark shadows, it does make this shit pretty terrifying. There was actually a few people at the Capcom offices who apparently screamed so loud that they could be heard at the other side of the fucking building to this part. It wasn't me, I swear. You can also occasionally get some random events, like all the lights like basically shattering in a room, and then you just can't even actually like turn the lights on anymore. As far as I can tell from this demo, there seemed to be only one actual like safe room area that you could truly get away from her, and everywhere else she could basically access to, though that could change, I don't know. But the actual demo itself was pretty short. It's probably the shortest out of all of them, unless I guess you really had bad luck with this chick. But yeah, that's kind of about it. There really wasn't much to it. There wasn't any action. It was essentially just avoiding this giant monster while solving puzzles. And I will say, I think this was impressive. It was creepy as hell. It was gorgeous, had a great atmosphere. But I'd say I am the least sort of excited about this game simply because it feels like we're being so drip fed with information about this game, and I think we are barely scratching the surface of what this game actually even is. Even what we got at the actual Gamescom announcement was pretty small, let's be honest. Basically just Grace hanging out with her mother and then seemingly getting attacked, and it just kind of ends there. And I feel like we're just sort of waiting for the game to actually show us what it really is, because the theories, right, that people have been throwing out there, and one of the reasons why this game is sort of encouraging first or third person, is that the game is potentially has more than one character or more than one kind of gameplay style. And I think that's actually a very distinct possibility. It feels like a really cool idea too, to have maybe Grace be the more kind of like the more helpless kind of character that has to deal with the horror aspects, and then having another character, maybe Leon Kennedy, maybe Chris, maybe Claire, Ada, somebody who's more action oriented, right? And then in those instances, it would probably be better to actually play the game in third person, right? Be much more like a classic Resident Evil in that way. Of course, that's just a theory, but it's also a little bit my hope that the game isn't just this. And the reason why I say that is because as scary as this is and unnerving as it is, even with the like bit of RNG factor and being hunted down and having to run away from basically this relatively intelligent AI, I do find that a lot of times there's not as much replayability in games that are just all about scares. And in particular, I found that the Resident Evil scares too, because they can tend to be so scripted in certain instances, it's kind of hard to get scared again from the same thing after you've experienced it the first time. And that's also just the nature of horror games in general, you know? I've always found them to be generally kind of one and done things unless it's got a really good gameplay loop, which a lot of the action elements of Resident Evil do. But whenever it comes to the actual scary parts, like the dollhouse thing from Resident Evil 8, or a lot of the family aspects of Resident Evil 7, I find that they just are greatly diminished on trying to go back and experience it a second time. I'd say the only one that really stood out and really did a good job at actually staying scary, even on another playthrough, was probably Mr. X and RE2 Remake. But yeah, I think I just want to see more of what this game actually is. I think we just need to see what the actual remaining hook is, because this just doesn't feel like this is really what the full game is. I don't foresee Grace is going to be like this absolute crazy gun-wielding powerhouse that's just gonna be like equipped with AK-47s and grenades and shit. I mean, she might, maybe she will be, but I don't really think she's that kind of protagonist. I think she'll probably get some stuff, you know, some stuff to work with, and I think she will get stronger, but I don't know if she's gonna be like some of the other characters in the series in that way. And I don't know if I necessarily want the whole game to be her just being like freaked out by everything. And just the concept, the idea of there actually being like more than one character that is like going through this epic story just seems like a really cool idea and something kind of different. At least, well, I guess RE6 did that apparently. I haven't played that myself, but that's what I've heard. So maybe not entirely original, but maybe executed better, because I hear RE6 was also one that people were a bit more contentious about. So either way, I just can't wait to see more of what this game has to offer. And if I had to guess when we'll actually start learning more information, it could be that we get it at Tokyo Game Show, but really, I think it's probably not going to be till another Capcom showcase, which I bet will happen sometime in the fall. I mean, it could be possible we'd have to wait till the Game Awards, but I think that's actually too long of a wait, in my opinion. And the game comes out in February. I feel like they're not going to wait that long to tell us what is actually happening here. So I think at some point we'll get a Capcom showcase, and they'll actually also give us specific dates for both Onimusha and Pragmata as well. We already know when RE9 is coming out. And I think that's when we'll actually really see what this game is and what it has to offer. And I think that's when I'll start to get a lot more excited about it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy these little previews and deep dives into some upcoming Capcom games. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Capcom team for inviting me out there and giving me a chance to play what is basically being shown off at Gamescom this year. I think all three of these games have a ton of potential and honestly just really fun and interesting to play, with the highlight surprisingly being, I think, Pragmata, just before being a new IP and having such a cool, interesting gameplay loop. But Onimusha also just looks amazing, and I think it's still like their most beautiful game, and RE9 is fucking terrifying. I think Capcom's got a really good handful of games that for 2026 that will definitely leave an impact on us, you know? Capcom's cooking, man, I tell you. It's like, It's amazing how much of like an absolute 180 they've done since like the early to mid 2010s. They have really evolved and returned to, I think, a new golden era. Now, of course, there's still plenty of other IPs I don't want to see from them, you know, Mega Man, Ace Attorney, but for what we're getting here, it does leave me very excited and excited for the future of the company and other series they might return to. So, but if you guys enjoy this, do leave a like and a favorite. It really does help me out, and consider subscribing to become a picky penguin aboard this LP, where the days are always sunny and the vids are always funny. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and as always, till next time, stay classy.